Ah, the end of July. Can you believe it? Said recently that there's scientific evidence that time is really speeding up. And as we live in this daily experience, we have come to realize that time is really speeding up. And so we're concluding our theme for July, which is relationships. And today we're looking at this idea of the one and only. I'll give you a little recap of the month and begin by saying no matter who or what our relationship is, it must be a relationship with God, since God is all there is. Ultimately, our relationship is a demonstration of God's relationship with itself. And so in week one, we looked at the idea of me, myself, and I. And what we discovered in that is that we teach others to treat us. We teach others how to treat us based on the relationship that we have with ourselves. How we treat others is based on, and how we treat ourselves offers us insight into how we treat others. How we treat ourselves offers us insight into how we treat others and how we want others to treat us. So it's a teaching process. And then in week two, we explored the idea of you and I are we. And this is the relationships that we have with our friends, with our family, with our community, those who we may personally know, as well as those who we may refer to as strangers. And it's how we relate to each stranger that we encounter, whether it is through a nod, through a wave, through eye contact. It is an opportunity to make a connection and build community. So we're all about oneness. And then in week three, we looked at you and me create society. And this is where we discovered the relationships we have with society. The society in which we live includes the nuances and the intersections to what those relationships mean, how they are formed and how they influence not only those within that particular society, but how they affect the global society. Again, it reminds me of an expression that I remember from probably the 60s that says to think globally and act locally. Some may be familiar with or have heard that at some point. And then last week, we looked at the idea that we are all star stuff. And this is exploring our relationship with nature, which includes the various aspects of nature, such as rocks, soil, plants, the waters and animals of the earth, all as well as how we are a part of nature. We are intimately affected by all aspects of nature, and we must ask ourselves, and we must consciously be in a loving relationship with it. And today we look at this idea of one and only, getting back to the central overarching theme that God is all there is. And there is nothing that can exist outside of God, since there is no outside of God. I have a story to share with you that may highlight this some more and give us a deeper understanding of it. And it's based on ancient Hindu legend, and it's divinity lies within us. The story is divinity lies within us. And so there was a time when all human beings were gods, according to this legend. However, they abused their divinity. And so Brahma, the chief god, decided to take the divinity away from them and hide it somewhere where they could never find it. In order to do this, Brahma called a council of the gods to help him decide where to hide humanity. Some of the gods said, "Let us bury it deep in the earth." But Brahma answered, "Humans will dig into the earth and find it." Some of the gods suggested, let us sink it deep into the ocean. But Brahma said, no, humans will learn to dive into the ocean and will find it. Then some of the gods suggested, let us take it to the top of the highest mountain and hide it there. But Brahma replied, humans will eventually climb every mountain and take up their divinity. Then all of the gods gave up and said, we do not know where to hide it, because it seems that there is no place on earth or ocean that human beings will not eventually reach. And has that not come full circle in our awareness of the discovery and the scientific evidence that there is life throughout multiple planets? Brahma thought for a long time and then said, will hide their divinity deep in the center of their own being. Humans will search for it here and there, but they won't look for the divinity inside their true selves. All of the gods agreed that this was a perfect hiding place. The deed was done, and since then, humans have been going up and down the earth, digging, diving, climbing, and exploring, searching for something which already lies within themselves. The principles and practices of science of mind teach us to look within for our divinity and our connection with the one. And this leads us into today's topic, the one and only. What does it mean to honor the divine in all, especially those that we may not like or may not approve of their behavior? For example, how do we honor the divinity of a person who is not of our political persuasion, or a radical homophile, a racist, or a sexist? While we do not accept or approve of their political, homophobic, racist, sexist rhetoric or behaviors, we must still ask, how do I practice seeing God and relating to God in this individual or groups of individuals? This is our invitation to look beyond the behavior, to be in constant contact and connection with our own inner divinity, so that from that inner place we can see the divinity that is in others. This is our call to spirituality. Spirituality means a constructive atmosphere of goodness, truth, beauty, harmony, and reality. Such an atmosphere comes to each individual to the degree they come to believe, understand, and make use of the invisible. To be spiritually minded is to be whole-minded. Be whole-minded is to be holy. This means we realize the complete unity of God in all creation. And I have a couple of points that will illustrate this idea of the one and only. First, we must ask ourselves, can there be a distinction between the sacred, the mundane, and the profane, the holy, the non-holy, and the unholy? There is only God, which means this question becomes, if I call this person or event unholy or profane, in which ways are the creative principles of the law being used to demonstrate such an experience? And what truth is being called forth to know that this condition is healed? Ernest Holmes offers this from the book, Can We Talk to God, on page 75. I believe that God is to each one what that person is to God. The divine nature must be infinite. We know only as much of this nature as we embody. And our second illustration reminds us that God is ever present to all as the presence of all. The mind that is being used by each individualized incarnation is no less than the one mind. Our relationship to our thoughts and our thoughts about the world are a direct reflection of our relationship with God. This relationship includes what we are praying for on any given day. And Ernest Holmes offers this from our Science of Mind textbook on page 497. To pray without ceasing means to be on the affirmative side of life. To pray without ceasing is to doubt never, to always trust in the law of good. This inner communication is essential to the soul and natural to the mind. It is a constant recognition of our relationship to that presence in which we live, move, and have our very being. And our third illustration is we change the world by changing the quality of our relationships with the world, which are our relationships to each other in all of the ways that God shows up. We change our relationship to the world by changing the quality of our relationships with the world. And these are our relationships to each other, all of the ways that God shows up. Notice there is no distinction between us and someone else. It's our relationship to each other in all of the ways that God shows up. The way we speak about God is the way we speak to God as God. Do we still use New Thought language to speak of an anthropomorphic God? This question really hit in my spirit when I saw this. Do I still use New Thought language to speak of an anthropomorphic God? And that is a God that is outside of me. That is a God that in some way reflects a human form. And yet, the scriptures and other sacred writings tell us that God is a spirit and that we must come to God in spirit and in truth. Ernest Holmes again offers this to us from our Science of Mind textbook on page 343. And he writes, "The only God we can know is the God of our own inner life. We can know no other. To assume that we can know a God outside of ourselves is to assume that we can know something of which we cannot be conscious. In other words, there is no God outside of ourselves." The relationships that we have in our spiritual communities, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, in our nations, and even with the ecosystems, speak to our understanding of our relationship with spirit. The life and teachings of Jesus was to show the intimate, immediate personal relationship that we all have with life itself, which is within us, around us, and through us. And this is from the book, 10 Ideas That Make a Difference. And so how we relate to anything and to anyone is how we relate to everything and everyone. And it is also how we relate to God. Again, because there is no separation, there is no distinction. As we heal each barrier to developing loving and forgiving and wonderful relationships, we strengthen our relationship with God as God. Let us heed the words of Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to find all of the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. That is love. Where are some of the places where we have built barriers in our lives to love? Are they appearing as codependency, or perhaps resentment or betrayal, or as barriers to love and living a more fully and wonderfully life that is our divine, magnificent selves? Where are the barriers that we have built that have created this false idea of a separation from God, from Spirit? This is our opportunity to begin the inner work of healing, transcending, transmuting, transforming, and rising like the phoenix, ready to embrace the world with love and wonder of spirit, consciously choosing to embrace and unleash this divine wonder, grace, love, and power. A person's relationship to God should be direct and dynamic. Every person's mind is an inlet to the divine. There is tolerance in this concept and inclusion. The infinite is all-inclusive, all-embracing, all-comprehending. This is from the November 1996 copy of the Science of Mind magazine on page 28. And as I read this about the inclusion and the all-embracing and the all-comprehending, I was reminded to go back to our statement of being that we say every Sunday. We say that we believe that life is good and that we are a welcoming and inclusive community. And I recently heard, for me, what was a very wonderful description and distinction between welcoming and inclusive. Welcoming means that you invite me in to your space, but I am only allowed to do what you allow me to do within that space. Whereas if I am included, then I am welcome to a seat at the table. There's a seat prepared for me at the table, and I am included. All of what I am, all of what I bring into that atmosphere. And so this is what we strive to do in our spiritual communities and in the teachings and the principles of Science of Mind, is to remind ourselves that God is all that there is. And when we say that, it includes everything, everyone, every possibility. There is nothing outside of God because there is no outside of God. And this leads us to our personal practical application for the week. The only evidence anyone has of love they feel is based on how they treat the person they love. The only evidence that we have of love is based upon how we treat the person that we love. We cannot see love. We can only see the actions that are motivated by love. And so this week, these are our opportunities. This is our invitation to demonstrate our love for God in how we love the world that is around us. It could be something simply as picking up the empty can that is littering the sidewalk. Or it could be choosing a non-pesticide way of tending to insects. Recycling more consciously and consistently. Reaching out to someone we have not spoken to in a while and letting them know that we miss them. And I want to put a little pause there because a self-reminder came up this week. There was someone that that I was close to, and then, you know, time and distance, and our kids grew up together, and as they went their ways and we moved and went our ways, we didn't keep the connection as solid as it had been at one point. And during the week, this person came to my mind, that the thought of them came to my mind. And a couple of days ago, I received a message that they had made their transition. And I'm looking at, you know, the pieces of this puzzle, if you will, and it appears that they made their transition on the day that I was thinking of them. And so again, it's a reminder. When I think of someone, stop whatever I am doing, not put it on pause, but stop whatever I am doing and to reach out and just say, thinking of you, hello, be well. Or another example is listening to the person we are talking to with more active attention. And that is another way of saying in our conversations, in our interactions with each other, we listen for understanding. We're not listening to respond, which is generally the case of our listening. It's like I'm preparing my rebuttal, I'm preparing my defense, I'm preparing my argument, or I'm preparing my point of view on whatever the topic is that we're discussing. No, the invitation is to listen for understanding, to really hear what the other person is saying. This is how we break down those barriers and break down those walls of seeming separation and become one in this community of love. And these are only a tiny fraction of the ways we can participate in building our relationships as a wonderful sacred act of recognizing and honoring the divine within all that there is. And our affirmation for the week is, my relationships with everything demonstrates my relationships with God. Let us say this together. My relationships with everything demonstrates my relationship with God. And I invite us to pray together, recognizing that there is only one life, only one presence, this all-prevailing presence that I call God in this moment. And yet I know that there are many names to describe this energy, this essence of absolutely all that there is. Knowing that this essence is individualized in and through and as each person. And that includes myself, and it includes all who are a part of this moment in time here at the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, whether we are gathered in our beautiful and lovely and welcoming and affirming and inclusive sanctuary or center space, but whether this is being viewed virtually by members in our Zoom community or those who will be viewing us through our Facebook Live page and on our YouTube channel. The multiple ways of contact, the multiple ways of connection that illustrates the non-locality of God and yet the inclusiveness of God, the reminder that God is all that there is. And so in deep, deep gratitude, I give thanks for this particular moment in time. I give thanks for the way that God shows up in my life. I give thanks for the blessings and the wonder and the miracles that continue to come forward. I give thanks for all of the connections, for everything that lines up in perfect synchronicity, even when it appears that there's a disconnect. All that is required is that I take a pause and that I step back, that I inhale and I relax and I release and I let go, knowing that God is in the details. And I can let go of the how and just make my request known to the universe. I bless places where people are gathering in the name and nature of the One, knowing that there are many paths that lead to the point of truth, that lead us back to home, lead us back to that connection of our intimacy and our oneness with all that there is. I bless those individuals and families that are experiencing transitions in their lives. The transition of a loved one, of a beloved who has stepped off the mortal plane into infinity, knowing that life is continuous, that this is only a pausing point on this eternal journey that still connects us all to one another. Giving thanks for and blessing those who are seeking right livelihood, however that may be showing up, knowing that the answer is already yes. And again, in the stillness, in that inner place of in the deepest recesses of our heart, the answer appears when we listen with a still small inner voice that connects us to the One. I speak a word of the blessing this morning for those who are experiencing health challenges, health opportunities, anything that appears as other than wellness and wholeness in God, as God, knowing that God is expressing itself in various ways through each individual. And whatever the journey is calling for, we embrace that particular aspect of the journey, knowing that this is not a place that I came to stay. It is only a pause point. And so again, I listen for what Spirit is saying, what is expressing itself in my body as dis-ease, that is giving me an opportunity to release and to let go, and to reignite my awareness that God and I are one. And in this oneness, there is no separation. And I have no unfulfilled needs or expectations. And so for this, and for so much more, I am eternally grateful. Releasing this word back into the law, which always says yes, I just allow it to be. And if any of this treatment, any of this prayer resonates with you, I invite you to affirm it with me as we say together, and so it is. I want to continue to use these opportunities to remind those who are a part of our inner community as well as part of our virtual community that practitioners and ministers are available to pray with you, to offer spiritual guidance with you for whatever it is that you're experiencing in life. Whether it be something that is a challenge, an opportunity to move through and express the oneness of all life, or whether it is a celebration of a demonstration in a life that is moving us all forward in the direction of our oneness and our wholeness. And so as we continue to give thanks for all of the blessings in our life, I have an abundance awareness statement that I would like to share with you. People have prospered in every kind of economic climate. This is because our supply, a consciousness of God, is unaffected by economic conditions. It is a law of spiritual awareness that must manifest itself. And this is from the book, Even Mystics Have Bills to Pay by Jim Rosemangieri. And so now it is time for us to share in our abundance, in our sacred giving. Thank you for the ways that you continue to support this loving community. And for those who are here in our sanctuary, there is a donation box on the little hospitality table where you may leave your offering there. And for those who are watching via Zoom or through any of our other virtual opportunities, we will flash out our screen the ways that you may donate to the center. You may mail in, and the center address is there. You may text to give, and the phone number is on our screen, and you may also donate through our secure website, www.montereycsl.org. Click on the donate button. Thank you for your ongoing generosity. And as we prepare to say good morning to our virtual community, thank you again for attending, and I'd like to invite you back next week as we begin our theme for the month of August, which is nature. And our topic will be Earth Force, Report for Duty. Sounds like something out of the NASA space station. Something out of Star Wars. Yeah, Earth Force, Report for Duty. Again, thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. And we thank you for the gift of yourself that you bring to us.